Well, hello, I'm Matt Edmundson, and you are listening to the eCommerce podcast. You know what? Since 2002, it's a really long time, I've been building, selling, and yes, occasionally failing at online business. I love creating unique equity partnerships with e-commerce brands and helping them grow from where they are to where they want to be. That's what I do now on a day-to-day basis. So I want to learn about e-commerce as much as you. And to do that every week, I get to chat with great guests, just like Omer. Omer, great to have you on the show, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do, and all that good stuff.
Thank you for having me. My name is Omer, originally from Israel, and for the past decade, I'm in Asia. I cannot believe I'm saying a decade. I sound so old.
You sound old. I've been doing e-commerce since 2002. That makes me feel really old.
Yeah, it's older, I have to say.
Brilliant. So yeah, for the past decade, you've been living in Asia.
So it started by traveling, and long story short, I help brands to source profitable products from Asia, China, Vietnam, India, Japan, and many other countries. We help in all the process of supplier finding, sourcing, quality control. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds like fun. I mean, if I can ask, how old were you when you started traveling to Asia? Did you sort of have the travel bug sort of fresh out of uni and you just kind of got caught in it?
So I've never been in university besides learning Chinese in the university in China, but I think I was 23 years old. I'm not sure. And I've been backpacking in Asia. And actually, when I came back to Israel to prepare for university, I decided I want to go to China to learn Chinese. And after a year in China, before I was supposed to come back to Israel to university, I've been thinking, wait, if I'm already in China and I know to speak Chinese, do I really need to go back to university, or maybe I can just start, grinding? And yeah.
Wow, fantastic. I don't come across many people who deliberately and intentionally learn to speak Chinese. That's quite a unique form of grit. A very good friend of mine, she's like my adopted sister. She's lovely. She's British, but she's also Chinese, and she tries to teach me Chinese, and I fail miserably. So the fact that you have done that, I think is remarkable. Good on you for doing that.
Yeah, well, the reason I studied Chinese, so I was thinking, should I go to learn Chinese or Japanese? And Japan sounds very expensive. So eventually I decided to go with China. And by the way, I was one of the worst students in the class back then.
Right.
But I think I'm the only one from my class back then that's still actually doing business in China. I guess it's all about practicing.
Yeah, I guess it is. I guess it is. Because and this is where I think, when it comes to sourcing products from China for e-com businesses, I know a few people that seem to have cracked it in whatever business they're in. But I know that it still scares a whole bunch of people because it's not just the language, it's the culture barrier that exists between, obviously, the West and the East, between Asia and between the sort of Americas, Britain's, Australia's type. I mean, Australia and New Zealand are a little bit unique, aren't they? Because I suppose they're quite close to Asia, so I think they've understood the culture of dealing with Asia a lot more. What are some of the things that you find are quite consistently bad from Western companies when it comes to understanding Asian culture and getting our heads around a few key principles before we start trying to source products from there?
So I guess the worst thing that Western people do is thinking like Western, so the approach to a Chinese person or Japanese or whatever, and they think that whatever they will say, the Chinese person will understand it as they would understand it. Not only in like the language, I mean the meaning, the subtext, and so this is, I guess, the biggest mistake. And because I don't think I can teach someone in 1 hour or even 1 year how to think like a Chinese or Japanese or whatever. Probably the biggest tip I can give is assume they don't understand you and you don't understand them. And if this will be your assumption, you will probably avoid most of the misunderstanding.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds remarkably straightforward, Omer, but I get why you would say that, because I think certainly in Britain, if our general response is, if you don't understand, we'll say the same thing slower and louder. Because surely then you'll understand. If I say the same thing slower and louder, you will understand, which is obviously not the truth. And I think there's a lot to be said for this cross-cultural understanding, which I think you miss a lot of the subtleties of. How is it at the moment in terms of trading with Asia? I'm kind of curious about this because at the time of recording, we've had, the announcement from the Trump administration about tariffs. And we can, politics aside, there's obviously some issue with international trading in the States. What's the sort of thinking there, in Asia with the tariffs? And I guess more importantly, if I can ask you, what are the opportunities there for us as e-commerce entrepreneurs to be thinking about?
Right. So like you said, politics aside, it's going to affect a lot of businesses. And you say Asia, but to be honest, it's mostly going to impact people that source from China, not in Asia, not from Asia in general. And I've been lucky because during COVID, a few years back, when China, in one day, everything got locked down, like the factories and everything. And back then, I remember I got a little bit scared because my whole business was based on China. And back then, I decided I'm going to start learn how to do sourcing from outside of China. Though it's a little bit complex because before this, I was living in China for a few years. I was speaking Chinese, and new countries is totally new things. But back then, I decided I'm going to do this. And now when this whole tariff thing came up, for me, it's actually a big opportunity because for the past few years, I'm traveling around Japan, Vietnam, and other countries, and I know how to source from all of these kind of countries. So for me, it's a big opportunity because all of the customers that source from China and suddenly got scared and they're looking for suppliers outside, I can provide it. So for me, it's a good opportunity. And I guess that anyone that is ready to explore a new country might find some good opportunities in there. But it's also important not to, not to do your next step out of panic, because during COVID, many companies try to find quickly suppliers outside of China. And then when Vietnam got locked down, the Chinese factories were opening. So we also need to remember that in many cases, China are still going to be the best option. Okay. Yeah. So don't force yourself to find suppliers outside of China, but you do need to explore maybe the product I'm making in China, I can make it outside of China better or cheaper or more unique. Yeah. And if so, you definitely have to go and look for this opportunity because you can save money and you can beat the competition.
That's really interesting.
Just to understand, if now menu making the same product in China and selling it in the USA, and I was quick enough to find a supplier in India that can make the same product in a cheaper price, and we both send to the USA, and I don't have the tariff, I'm going to earn and make more money than you on the same product.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting you say that because years ago, I'm going back 2002, 2006, we had a business that sold from a place called Jersey. Now, Jersey, to the Brits, is a small island off the north coast of France. Okay, it's independently British, is the best way I know how to describe Jersey. So Jersey wasn't necessarily subject to the tax rules that the UK was. And at the time, it's different now, but at the time, there was a VAT advantage. So VAT is sales tax. So when you shipped products from Jersey with a value, I think it was less than £20 from memory, if you shipped goods less than £20 from Jersey to the UK, you didn't have to charge the customer VAT. Okay. Now, bearing in mind our sales tax is 20%. So still more than the tariffs. Well, maybe about the same as the tariffs Trump will put on Chinese products. But we had this tax that we didn't have to pay shipping from Jersey that somebody from the UK did have, if that makes sense. So we could be 20% cheaper than our competitors and still make the same profit. And so I think it was probably for about 3 or 4 years, maybe not that long, maybe about 3 or 4 years, we were able to take advantage of this tax differential. And it helped us become much more profitable than our competitors, because we either sold at the same price and made more profit, or we sold at a cheaper price, still probably made more profit, but was still cheaper than our competitors. Ethics aside about, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's just a thing in the free market economy. And I kind of feel now with the tariff situation that Trump is introducing, there is what I would call a Jersey moment, whereby if you can source products, the same product, the same quality, etc., but somehow ship that in effect tariff-free, you can take advantage of that. And we created a business of rapid growth during those years that I don't think we would have been able to do had we have not had that advantage.
Right. So it's definitely an opportunity, but like I said before, and I want to say again, I don't tell people don't buy from China now because of the tariff. There are many products. I think most of the products, China probably still going to be the most attractive in terms of variety and pricing and how quickly they can make the product. So just to understand, right now I'm making products in Japan. I'm in Japan at the moment. Mm-hmm. The lead time to make product is 6 months. In China, it would be probably 45 days. So it's not like go away from China. No, it's nothing like this. And I think if you still need to look at the numbers, okay? And again, in many cases, you will find out China is more attractive, even with the tariff. Even if Trump will increase the tariff again, China will still be attractive. But I do think it's a good opportunity for brands to explore countries beside China. Again, not just because of the tariff. The tariff should be the opportunity. There are different qualities, more unique products, maybe customization you can do. So I do think everyone should explore it, assuming you see yourself in the game for long term, and not just for a few months, because it's a process that takes time.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's very sage advice, isn't it? And I love what you said here about learning from COVID. Everybody panicked during COVID, so they went to Vietnam then shut down. And I can see a similar sort of thing going on here, whereby everyone leaves China to go to Vietnam, and then Trump interposes tariffs from Vietnam. He just sort of goes from one place to, you just don't know what's going to happen, do you? And so I like that. The fact that we have that whole thing in quite recent living memory with COVID means that we should definitely, remember that and learn from that, which makes a lot of sense. Omer, before we carry on, let me just take a brief second, everybody listening to the show, to talk to you about something that is happening in both Australia and New Zealand right now. We have something called Cohort. You may have heard me talk about this on the show before. Cohort used to be a paid membership program. It's now, we don't charge for it. It's just it's not even a membership. It's just like a community, a group. And we are launching Cohort in Australia. So if you're in the Australia, New Zealand part of the world and would like to come and meet fellow e-commerce entrepreneurs, we just connect once a month online via Zoom and just chat. How is it going? How's e-commerce? What have we all learned? And share some insights and stories. We would love to welcome you to that. Just reach out to me at ecommercepodcast.net. Or just reach out to me on LinkedIn. Go find me on LinkedIn, Edmundson, and I will share with you the details. We would love to see you in that. So yeah, do come and join us in that. Do you get to Australia much, Omer, New Zealand, or is it just you stay Japan, China, that sort of belt?
So yeah, I've been in the past because I have some customers in there. Actually, I'm going to the UK once in a while. I have customers in there also. But for the past, I think it's almost 15 months, 16 months, I'm not sure. I've been only in Asia. Like I didn't have time to go anywhere else.
Oh, wow. Beautiful people, beautiful food, and a beautiful part of the world.
Beautiful food, yeah, good food. This is the important part. This is why I do this business, you know. Well, a long time ago, I had a friend that told me the reason you do business in China is to finance your trips to Japan. And it's true. So now I've been upgraded, and now I also do business in Japan, so I can eat the food in Japan.
Fantastic. On that topic, you know, of the multiple different countries in Asia, and Japan is still on my bucket list. I'm not going to lie, I've not managed to make it yet, but I've been to Malaysia, I've been to Singapore, I've done a whole bunch of them. I've not actually made it as far as Japan, but I will be there at some point. The default thinking is, still, I think, for a lot of e-commerce entrepreneurs, I need a product, I need it cheaper, so therefore I need to source it from China. And like you said, most of the time that makes a lot of sense. What are some of the countries that people aren't thinking about that maybe we should? You know, should we be thinking about, say, Thailand or Vietnam if it's clothing? Where are some of the other sort of the good places to go to in Asia that we're perhaps not thinking about?
So I'll give a quick brief for some of the main countries. Okay, so I will start with Japan, and Japan is not going to be cheap anyway. But in Japan, you might be able to make unique products that no other country can make. And to me, with my experience, I think that making a unique and good product can be sometimes much more valuable than making cheaper product. So this is for Japan. Korea is a cosmetics empire. So if you want to make a good cosmetic brand, it's the right place. Vietnam, textile, plastic, some metals and wood and bamboo. But Vietnam is a place for mass production. So many products in China, you need MOQ of 1,000 pieces, minimum order quantity. In Vietnam, you're going to need 5,000 pieces.
Okay.
Thailand, I have to say, and I've been in many factories in Thailand, they can do some textile and stuff, but I still couldn't find any actual advantage in making products in Thailand. Because every time when I compared it in China, China was better.
Right.
And India, it's definitely something people should look at. Wood product, electronics, and other products. But again, each country like this come with a lot of business culture and things that are different from China. So just for example, production time in India, it's kind of like they are giving you the time and you hope it's going to be anywhere around this time. This is just for example. So each country have some advantages and opportunities and unique products, but I know I'm repeating because I think it's the most important part. Eventually people need to look for the best supplier that can provide the best product in the best price. I don't think you should be looking into a country. You should be looking into a supplier. And if you find a supplier in China or Vietnam or India, go for it. Yeah.
No, again, sage advice. It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? But I can see why businesses like yours, Omer, do well, because I would look at that and I would go, I have no idea. I have no idea about the culture. I have no idea about the language. I don't know if I'm going to get ripped off. Like, am I just pouring money into a black hole? Will the quality of the product be good? I suppose one thing that a big question I would have in my head about dealing with China, and we do deal with Asia, I have to be honest with you. One of the big questions always in the back of my head is to do, rightly or wrongly, is the connection with child slave labor. Like, is there openness? Is there transparency? How do I know what's going on in that factory? How do I know they're not going to take my idea and copy it? So there's a lot of hurdles I have to overcome before I think about getting manufacturing in China. Am I weird, or is that true for a lot of people? Are they sort of similar barriers?
I think everybody think about these things. Now, I guess for child abuse and like slavery and stuff, it's very easy to check this stuff. Like, you can do factory audit, and very quickly you can know who is working in the factory, how many hours, and so there is a very quick and easy solution for this. For copying your ideas, I have to tell you that I think I stopped thinking about this a long ago, because I do sourcing, but many times I also develop the products and then suggest to my customers, which are companies and brands. And I have to tell you that this is something I learned actually from some big companies in the UK, very big ones. I cannot say their name, but they don't spend a moment about thinking if the Chinese supplier will copy them. They just keep innovating and thinking about the next product.
Yeah.
And sometimes the Chinese copy them. Yeah, it's happened. But, also your competitor can copy you, right? So I don't think it's the right thing to spend time on.
Yeah.
Will he copy me? And if it's really important for you, do the patent or trademark or whatever. But I believe that it's much better to, if you have an idea, find the best supplier, push the product to the market as fast as possible, and hope that you will do good enough job that even if somebody will copy you, everyone will feel he's the copy and you're the original.
Yeah. Well, it's, again, wise advice. I think that's true I think whether you order from China, whether you don't, right? Your competitors, in effect, are going to be copying you, and you've always got to think, push and innovate and so on and so forth. It makes a lot of sense to do that. And if you're not doing that, I think you've got some fundamental problems anyway. What products do you see working well at the moment? What products are coming out of Asia that actually are starting to sell well online? Because I know fidget spinners don't have the kudos that they once had, for example. But what are some of the things that are working?
Well, to me, I feel that because there are much more competition now compared to before. Like, every year you have more and more e-commerce sellers, right? Doesn't matter on Amazon, Shopify, whatever platform it is. I feel you have to be, it's not about like what specific products, you just have to be much more unique these days to succeed. Like, unless you have a lot of money, and you can really spend a lot on ads, and then you don't have to be unique because you have eyeballs on your product. But if not, you need much better quality products or much cheaper price on the product. And both things are hard to get. Like, if everybody got a certain price and you want to be able to sell it in much cheaper price and still to make money, it's going to be really hard to find the right supplier. And if you want to be able to make much more unique or special quality compared to other, it's also going to be very hard. So I feel the time you need to spend today on finding the right supplier and making the product in the right way, because it's not only finding the supplier. Like, you can find many good suppliers and they're gonna make shitty quality. You need to know how to do the quality control and stuff. I think this is the way. I know it's not exactly what you asked, but this is the way to be different and succeed, because I don't think I can point on a specific product and tell you, oh, now there is this kind of textile or this kind of watch, that because every product that come out now with TikTok and everything, after 3 months, you're going to see it everywhere.
Yeah. I love this comment about, make it unique. That really resonates in the sense that for a while, I don't see it as much now, but for a while you came across people who would try and sell the same product everybody else was trying to sell out of China. Usually you go to some site like Temu or AliExpress or something like that, and you would buy a product, pick any random product, I don't know, the plastic widgets, and you would go, well, they cost 10 cents to make and I can sell them for $3. Well, why would I not try and sell those? But there was nothing unique about either the product or the way that they were trying to sell it. And everything was bland. It was like they'd just gone and got the same template from Shopify and copied it like 10,000 other people did, and just used the same text that 10,000 other people did. And there was nothing about them. There was nothing about their brand, their voice, their uniqueness, like that type of thing. And it's interesting you say that, because I think, and it's not just with products from Asia, I think it's just with e-commerce sites full stop. There has to be something really unique about that differentiates you from Amazon, that differentiates you from all the other commodities out there in the world, and that enables you to really stand out in the consumer's mind. And so it's interesting that you've noticed that as well, with products coming over from China. So it's not a definitive, well, the fidget spinner has now been replaced by the spinning fidget. I don't know, but it's more a case of actually whatever you do something unique. And I really like that. How can you make, and I'm assuming on that then, Omer, that actually the factories in China, in Vietnam or wherever, they are quite keen to work with you to help you put your unique flavor and taste on it.
So it depends, because the Chinese, they just want to sell. They just want the cash. And many times they will just put you, this product sell very good, buy this. They just want the cash. Many times they don't think long term. This is specifically for the Chinese. So I think I really think you need to understand it's your responsibility as a buyer to try to come up with the unique thing. Don't ask the supplier, how can I make this more unique? And there are many people who ask this. I will even say more. If you go to one of the trade shows in China, for example, and you will ask the Chinese supplier, why should I buy from you? Most of them will give you the same answer, because of our quality and price. Now, most of them going to say the same thing. So you just understand all the pricing are the same, all the quality are the same. There is nothing unique about this. Like for me, for the brands I'm working with, our way to make it unique is really to take a product and existing product and develop a much better product. And when this is what you do, and it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. It takes time to find the right supplier. You need to make sample and again. But when you do it, you are really unique. And by the way, you don't need to be worried about somebody copy you, because when you actually develop a product, it's really hard to copy you. And even if somebody succeeds to copy you, it's going to take him about 6 months or 1 year just to get to the same quality or the same design. So for me, I think trying to invest more in product development is the right way to be unique. These days, of course, there are more ways. Sometimes you can be unique just by giving a great customer service. But I assume that most of the listeners here are not huge companies, huge corporations that have the money to invest in great customer service or a lot of paid ads and stuff. So sometime if you're going to take the extra 2 or 3 months to develop the product a little bit more, to make it to be more unique, once you launch it, you're going to have much more heaven time. I think there is a phrase like this in Amazon that they promote you. So it's the same, like you're going to develop a product and you're going to have longer time that nobody can compete with you. And you're probably going to be able to sell your product in higher price because it's the only product in the market that have this specific design or feature or whatever.
Yeah, no, I love it. Love that. I love that phrase, heaven time. I think that's a great phrase. So it's your responsibility then, as the founder, the owner of the business, to make sure that the product development is done right and done well. A quick shout out to the episode I did with Norm Farrar. He talks about how he does this for his process, how he improves a product. Actually, he takes a standard product and how he makes it better. If you want to go check that out, just go onto the website, ecommercepodcast.net, search for the episode with Norm, who is a great guy, and you'll enjoy that episode, I have no doubt whatsoever. I'm curious, right? There's people going to be listening to the show that are just getting started in e-com. There are people like me that have been around a little while. You know, you've got a wide range of listeners. One of the questions I can hear, you know, the people asking, I try and think about the questions that maybe listeners would ask if they were sat here. What are the advantages maybe of giving you a call and using you to help me with this problem versus trying to do it myself, versus the costs? I mean, everyone's always, you know, concerned about money and costs and things like that. So there's going to be what we like to call in economic terms, a cost-benefit analysis is the official term, I think. So I'm curious, how would you answer that question?
Right. So I would say that my average customer make at least 1 million annually, and at least this is really the minimum. And I say this because maybe in some cases it's not the best decision to work with somebody like this. Like if you're a beginner and you have a very small budget, do it yourself. I try to post some content on YouTube and Instagram and LinkedIn. You can watch, you can learn, do it yourself. I think you should work with a company like me and with a person like me when, number one, you have time constraint, like you're a big company and time is more important than money, and I can save you a lot of time. Or when you're trying to make something unique that you probably don't have the skill to make by yourself. I think you should work with me if you need the results, and it's not just about the budget. I do think, and I really say this, that if you're in the phase in your business that budget is the most important thing, there are many things you can do by yourself. Like you don't have to pay for everything, right? Most of the business owners in the beginning, they're probably gonna do the marketing by themselves. It's all good. Later, when they will grow, they will probably pay to a company to do it. So I think it's kind of the same here. Yeah.
A very, very sensible approach. So really, the cutoff then is about $1 million turnover. So if you're doing $1 million a year, as a bare minimum, then you can think, like you say, if time is important to you, then you know, give Omer a ring. I think but you say you've put out content to help someone who's just starting out to do it themselves on your YouTube channel and so on and so forth. We will of course have the links to that, hopefully, Omer, in the show notes if we've done our job correctly, and you can obviously go and watch those to your heart's content. Which would be great. So let me sort of bring this back round a little bit. We're talking to you. We've got a unique product. We're sourcing it from somewhere in Asia to sell in our country. We're obviously keeping an eye on things like tariffs and so on and so on. I mean, to be fair, you know, the tariffs affect the US. They don't. It doesn't really affect me in the UK. You know, we have our trade agreements with China. I don't see Keir Starmer changing those at any point in the near future. So I think I appreciate that it's more a US issue. Where do you think it's all going, Omer, over the next 5 years? What's your sort of prediction for the West dealing with the East in terms of supply of these types of products? Are we still going to be doing it because it's cheaper or better or higher quality? Do you see the roadmap of development in Asia and think actually it's still a pretty safe bet. I'm kind of curious where you see it all going.
Wow. I need to be honest because I am like keeping an eye on the future, but I try not to make assumptions that based on nothing, basically, because so I do try to look at processes that already happening, and I can only assume probably going to keep happen. So, for example, the distance between the end user to the factory going to get shorter. And this is a process that's already happening. Like in the past, 6 years ago, a customer in the USA, end user in the USA would be buying from the shop, that would be buy from the distributor, that will be buying from the importer, buy from a trading company in China that would buy from a factory. And this distance already got shorter. Okay. So I guess this process is going to keep going. And I see more and more factories starting to sell to the end user, which is a bad news for probably most of the businesses. Because if you are an Amazon seller or an e-commerce seller, and right now you buy from a factory and you sell to the end user, and the factory going to start sell directly to the end user, you might have a problem. So this is something that's already happening. And I can only assume it's going to keep happening. And so I think this is one thing people really should focus on. And just, I'm getting back to what I said before, make a unique product, develop a product. Because if you make your own product, it doesn't matter if a factory going to sell directly to the end user, it's your product. But if you just buy and sell, like regular stock, the normal items that everybody can buy, you're going to have a problem, I think.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. And I get it. And why would factories not sell direct to consumer, right? We see it all the time over here in this country. So why would they not? I think there's still going to be an opportunity for people like me to bridge the culture gap, if you see what I mean, in the sense that going back to what we said at the start of the show, I think a few companies like Banggood and Temu have managed to make it so that I actually feel kind of confident buying a product off their website. But I think there's always going to be that uncertainty where if I could get the same product from a local website, would I be more likely to buy? It's an interesting question, isn't it, about sort of world economics and where it's all going. But I'm intrigued by that. Omer, listen, this is the part of the show, good sir, where I ask you for a question for me. So this is where I've been doing this for a little while. If you're new to the show, welcome, by the way. It's great to have you. But for a while, I've been saying to my guests, can you please give me a question, which I will then go and answer on LinkedIn. I will put the answer to this question on LinkedIn. But Omer, what's your question for me?
So you've been probably dealing with suppliers in Asia and China specifically for a while, because you do it for many years. Tell me, what was your biggest disaster, if there was any, working with a Chinese supplier?
Biggest disaster working with a Chinese supplier. Very good. Very good. Well, I will answer that question on LinkedIn. And if I remember, I'll also tell you my biggest disaster working with an American supplier. That was much bigger, actually, which is ironic. But yeah, I will be posting the answer to that question on LinkedIn. If you don't follow me already, come follow me LinkedIn, Matt Edmundson. But Omer, listen, really appreciate you, man. Appreciate you coming on and sharing the insights and thoughts that you have and your expertise about the whole thing. If people do want to reach out to you, if they've got maybe more questions, looking for a little bit more advice, maybe I've not asked the question that they wanted answering, but they're burning to ask it anyway. Or maybe they want to work with you. What's the best way to reach out? What's the best way to connect?
Can DM me on Instagram or LinkedIn and we can schedule a quick call.
Fantastic. And of course, we will put those links to your Instagram and to your LinkedIn in the show notes, which you can get along for free. Along with the transcripts, the show notes and all that sort of stuff for free on the website at ecommercepodcast.net. Of course, you can just scroll down in your podcast player and the links will be in there. We'll put the links in the YouTube description if you're watching this on YouTube as well. But do reach out to Omer. I'm sure he would love to hear from you. Omer, listen, man, really, like I say, really appreciate it. It genuinely great. Loved every minute of it. Thank you for coming on and share. I've learned a lot, actually. I've got some notes here. I've got some questions for our team as well, which is always good. But thanks for coming on, man. Genuinely, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for your time.